a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Here I am with a review of a fantastic novel I read recently, Angel of Oblivion by Maja Haderlap, translated from the German by Tess Lewis, published by Archipelago Books in 2016. I believe the original was published in 2012. Yes. I love this book. It was not perfect, but what imperfections were there did not budge me off a solid, enthusiastic 5-star rating. So let me tell you about it. Maja Haderlap is a Austrian writer from the province of Carinthia, which I believe is in the north of Austria. I hope that's right, north. Geography is always a challenge. That was the part of Austria that had a lot of Slovenian-speaking people, and that is Haderlap's ethnic background. Carinthia abuts what used to be Yugoslavia and now is present-day Slovenia. So this is a story quite autobiographical, I would imagine, about a family of Slovenian Austrians living in Carinthia. Maybe the present of the story is set in the 1960s. The unnamed narrator, I would assume it's to a certain degree based on Maja Haderlap's own life, is growing up in the countryside on a farm with her parents and her grandmother and other siblings and relatives. The main characters are her grandmother, who is a survivor of the concentration camp Ravensbrück, and her father, who was, as a pre-teenager during World War II, was deeply involved in the partisan, militarized resistance to Nazism, as was the grandfather, and that's why the grandmother went to Ravensbrück. Because the entire family was supporting and participating in the partisan resistance, the family was traumatized and brutalized during the war. And so this girl is growing up in the 1960s with a father who is got so much post-traumatic stress that he is acting out and acting strangely and occasionally violently, and the family is just in tatters. The grandmother has done a lot more healing than her son, and she is kind of the emotional mainstay of the family. The mother is kind of a little bit not as fully realized in the story, or I didn't end up paying as much attention to her because of the ferocious presence of the grandmother and her son, the protagonist's father. The farm life, aside from all the trauma, if it's possible to separate it out, was just almost idyllic and beautiful to read about. They had bees on the farm and this and that, different animals, and the countryside sounded so beautiful, and they're surrounded by woods, and the woods played a huge part in the partisan resistance. All the partisans were hiding in the woods and swooping down and attacking the Nazis, and a lot of the father's vocation involves him going up into the woods, so the woods around the farm is almost like another character in the novel. I loved the way Maja Haderlap brought those two aspects of the story together. The just horrific stuff that these people endured during the war, the aftermath of all that, and just the daily life and beautiful moments of living in such a gorgeous place. It's so jarring the way those two strands of the story butt up against each other and produces what I think is a stirring novel. I don't want to say too much more than that. There's parts of it that didn't really work as well for me. The coming-of-age story of the protagonist was less affecting than her childhood observances of her family. It got a little solipsistic in places as she grew up and became a writer herself, but this was just a stunning read all in all. So I'm just going to read two short passages to you. One that shows one of those lighter moments of the protagonist with her grandparents. So this is a memory of her grandfather who had died a few years before. So the she here is the grandma. Twice a week she inspects the hen roosts in the tool shed and the barn. If at the end of the week there are no eggs in a particular nest, she will look for the bird she suspects is dallying instead of laying. When that hen strays within reach, she pounces on the screeching fowl and sticks her index and middle finger in its behind. If there's a flash of white between her fingers, she says, the egg will come tomorrow or the day after. The shell is still soft. Once, to my delight, she pulls an egg out of the chicken, and it dissolves in her hands. I have to laugh. Egg girl, grandmother calls me. Grandfather gave me the name, she tells me, when he was lying sick on the bench by the stove and had to watch over me. I was a toddler, not much more than a year old, and had discovered the eggs in the bottom drawer of the sideboard. I let them roll one after another across the wooden floor, and as each yolk burst from the shell, I called, "Saint-Chigre, the little sun has come out." Grandfather watched me and was so charmed he let me take all the bowls off the shelves and wouldn't let grandmother scold me. As she wiped the scrambled eggs off the floor, he told her she should take pity on me and on him. He died soon after, even though I had kept him entertained. So that's just sweet, and I love those kind of moments sprinkled throughout the novel. And here's one that's heavier. This is where the grandmother is opening up and sharing more with her granddaughter about her experience. And this is a book that was that she got from a commemorative ceremony at Ravensbrück that she went to as an old lady. "Give it to me," grandmother says, and pulls the book impatiently from my hands. "I'll show you the guards." She leafs through the book and shows me a group of women sitting in dock in a courtroom. She points at a young blonde woman. She was the worst, grandmother says. She had a dog that she set on prisoners when they collapsed during roll call. Grandmother can still see the bloodhound, how it pulls at the leash before crouching to leap onto an exhausted woman. A Polish woman from her block was bitten by that dog. She had real holes in her legs. A Polish doctor ordered the wounds washed in urine. It helped. They didn't have anything else. No bandages. Nothing at all. "It was this guard," grandmother says, laying her index finger on the woman's face, which disappeared beneath it. She was very young and very evil. Very depraved. "Good Lord, what people won't do," grandmother exclaims, and spits on the photograph. Then she wipes the pages with her sleeve so they won't stick together. So again, many powerful, really disturbing scenes of passing down the stories of the trauma that the grandmother had undergone and witnessing the present-day effects of all of that trauma in her father and the way that he is unable to cope with life because of what happened to him. That gives you an idea of the range of the writing and the incidents in this novel. And if that sounds good to you, I urge you to give this a try. I won't soon forget it. Thanks for watching.